Ladies and gentlemen, I just cracked myself up. I was so sick. You know, I was just having a conversation with Josh a few minutes ago. Talks about one of these days I'm going to start doing the intros. Not today, mind you, but it's coming up. I'm thinking about a mutiny. So he doesn't probably know I'm doing this right now. Okay, I'm lying. He's standing here looking at me on the screen. But we got a great guest today, but I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to turn you over to Josh and let him handle this because, you know, we're learning to work this thing together because we are such an awesome team. I know this because many of our podcast guests have told us this recently. So I'm going to step into my power, as they keep saying, and just take a little bit of an edge. But for the moment, here's Joshy.
You know, there have been two people in my life who've gotten away with calling me Joshy Kelvin.
You didn't happen to marry the other one, did you?
Nope.
Oh, well.
One of them is my aunt. And to be fair, her nieces and nephews are the only ones who get to call her Linny.
I see.
And the other person was my downstairs neighbor when I was... Actually, remember that party you came to 3 hours early? When I was in that apartment, my downstairs neighbor used to call me Joshy.
Well, I do like being punctual. We need to do a podcast on that party. Just I do remember that.
Oh, gosh.
We'll tell them the story one day.
Well...
I'll tell you what, I won't.
That party got a little out of hand after you left, too. So that party got a little out of hand after you left. So
good.
Maybe it's a good thing you got 3 extra hours in early instead of later.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good.
Anyway, welcome to the JKWD podcast. We're gonna whip you into shape here today.
Oh yeah. Good one.
You like that? All right.
Uh-huh.
I was waiting to see how long it's going to take you to get it. We have former dominatrix Dana Pharant on the podcast, and we had her on because she wrote us a note that said, you have a podcast called World Domination. You need to have a dominatrix on. I'm like, all right. So yes, we do. You're right. But you know, we talk more about, we talk about a lot more than that.
We did talk about that though.
Yeah, we did. We did, and
I just had to know
before I don't know, leave my tongue on the desk because I don't know what this barely talking thing I'm doing right now is. We're brought to you today by Audible. Get your free book, your free audiobook, your free month at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/JKWD. That's audibletrial.com/JKWD, or text JKWD to 500-500. That's JKWD to 500-500 to get your free audiobook, your free month at Audible. I'm going to put the music here. Josh and Kelvin World Domination Podcast, where we talk about better humanhood and teach you how to dominate your world. You ready? Here we go. All right, so everybody who's listening has the same Google we do. We could just read your bio, but why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why?
Thanks, Josh. So my name is Dana Pharant, and I am a master healer, life strategist, former dominatrix. And what I've done is I've been taking the skills and the lessons that I've learned to, what it took for me to step into that role and applying that for particularly women in business. So it's not necessarily the stretch that most people would make, thinking, oh, a dominatrix would be the perfect person to teach you about business. But you think about things like having confidence, Well, who better to have confidence than a dominatrix? And so she's got good skills and training to give you, and being able to negotiate, being able to stand in your power, being able to ask for what you want, command good fees. These are all skills that are so transferable and so needed, because a lot of people in business, and like I say, particularly women, don't tend to stand in their power. They don't tend to, really stand in their expertise and show up fully. So it's a great skill set that I really want to bring to the world. That's a synopsis.
Well,
all right.
That was good. I'm probably going to get in trouble early.
Go for it.
I am the prince of putting one's foot in the mouth, and on a podcast it comes out working really, really cool, and then people have to back up and listen because they spit coffee out their nose or something. But I will admit, when we first got your write-up, it was like really, really intriguing. So now, and it still is. I love the part about women standing in their power and the way you've put this together. So I think I'd like to know a little bit more about the dominatrix role. I actually had a conversation recently that taught me a couple of things that I had concepts on that weren't like submissives, for instance. There was a whole other thing about submissives, which they're like, oh, no, that's not really what it's about. That stuff you see on TV, that's kind of garbage. And what the real life situation for this thing is. So we can fully understand your whole conversation about standing in your power and stuff. Tell us a little bit more about the dominatrix role in the real world, not the one I had in my head before you showed up.
Right. Yeah.
And then we can go into how that's transferring into the business sense that you're talking about.
For sure. And that's, it's Hollywood never portrays any stereotype accurately, right? If you talk to lawyers, they will be quite upset about how Hollywood portrays lawyers. Real estate agents, every profession gets upset about how Hollywood portrays it. And it's the same thing in the world of the BDSM, kink, the dominatrix world. They sensationalize, and it's really easy to sensationalize, because on the outside, what it looks like is this person the dominatrix has all the control. She gets to decide what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, boss somebody around, just stand there with a whip and make the person clean their floors. That's what it looks like on the outside. The reality is that the dominatrix is actually a high-level service position. And so when you have somebody come in who's looking for the services, there's a negotiation piece that happens. So you sit down with this person and you say, okay, well, what is it that you're looking for? What kinds of things do you want to experience? What have you experienced before? What are things that are like an absolute no? And it's a very in-depth conversation, and it's done without, any of the pretenses. So you're meeting just like you and I would be talking, just casual. Where are you at? And that's really required, because the scenario of giving up your power, or, pretending to give up your power, you really need to understand the other person. You need to understand where they're at. And so I would always ask people what their triggers were, what words are going to set you off emotionally, or what words are going to be, putting you more into that state. Because for some people, calling them a slut is a good thing. It's very exciting. And for other people, that just sets them off, and then it takes them out of state, and you lose the scene. So you need to know all of that information ahead of time. And so it's very in-depth, very discussed, and everything's negotiated. And that's important, I think, for people to understand, is that these scenes that are set up where it's a power dynamic, it's pretend. We're like actors, and we go into this. Now, we don't just pretend to be doing it. We actually get into the energy, and we really live it in that moment. But there's an awareness at that level that this is a game, this is a dance. And the idea, at least from my perspective, the idea was always to create a transformation. So I would take people through the journey of letting go of their power, surrendering into that energy, surrendering into my control, so that they can let go of the things that they thought they couldn't do. And so they go further than they thought they could. So let's say somebody's coming in and we're going to, use a flogger, which is a lighter whip. It's, got several threads to it. So if we're doing that and we're ramping up the pain, it helps people to kind of drop into that endorphin state. And in ramping up the pain, you actually push through the limits of where you thought you could go. And the whole scene is set up so that you actually drop into a very high level consciousness. It becomes a spiritual experience because the pain combined with the energy allows you to actually let go into a state that most people will not go. Like even if deep years and years of meditation, they still won't get to that high level transformation. But with the pain, you can actually take them there very quickly. And when they drop into that surrender, it's a state of ultimate bliss. And in that state of ultimate bliss, that's where we can actually create that transformation and letting people know how powerful they actually are. So it's kind of combination of, mind control, hypnosis and, high level trance, meditation, all of that combined, but using the whips as the tool. So.
Wow, you almost made me want to sign up for that program. We're gonna hold up right.
No problem. I'll send you.
Josh, you got anything in there?
Well, I was gonna say it sounds like you're literally whipping them into a flow state.
Yes.
Because the state that you're describing, that one of bliss, that one of kind of euphoria, feels like that sounds exactly like where I hit 2 hours into a run. I've been pounding on my knees, and my pack has I've got rashes on my neck and whatever. But that's when I really start to feel like, wow, I could be anywhere right now. I'm just flying. How did you deal with first timers who weren't really sure what to expect and didn't know that that's where they wanted to get?
Quite honestly, I never really, wouldn't take on first timers. That's not where my skill set is. I worked with people who already had some experience and wanted to go much further, because there are people who will play with first timers, and it's kind of like just getting them into the experience. This is what a flogger feels like. This is what a whip feels like. And they don't necessarily drop them into the energy component of it. So I can't speak to that, unfortunately.
Okay.
Now, go ahead, Kelvin.
No, go ahead, because you don't.
Well, I was going to transition out of this realm, so if you want to, got more questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and actually, I just want to say one piece. So, Josh, the piece that you talked about the runner's high, that I would say is actually a little bit closer to what me as a dominatrix would experience, what I call the topping high.
Okay.
Because there's a physical exertion that goes on. Like it is physically intense to beat people, which is part of why I transitioned out of this. I'm kind of a lazy dominatrix. And so there's a physical exertion that goes on, and you get into a zone. So that runner's high would be closer to the top high as opposed to the submissive. The submissive drops in, I would say that's closer to a deep transcendental meditation. Somebody that's been doing TM for like 10 years might be able to get into that real level of like complete surrender to everything that is. Like the only thing that exists is this moment. No time, no space, nothing outside of the area.
The ultimate in presence, you might say.
The ultimate in presence, it really is.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So take that for me now from the executive who just experienced that, and now that business side of him. You're doing that for business people. He's going back to business. How do you transfer that skill set to help them understand how to do better in their business life and or the rest of their personal life? Because that's, I did listen. You do a lot of stuff. You're an energy healer. You're I'm not sure I don't know if I heard psychic, but you do a lot. And I'm really, really curious to hear how all that meshes together to do the stuff that you teach and that you help transform people.
Thanks. And, the underlying theme of it for me is always about getting people to step into their power. And for me, power is not power over, it's power with and presence, deep presence with what is. So what I'm looking to get people connected to is the fact that, they're really, ultimately, they are in control of everything in their life. They're the ones that are the master of their own destiny. I like to call it that you're an infinite being. And, really being able to tap into the fact that you have that ability to create anything in your life. So that's kind of the high level of it. And where I bring in the skills and the learnings from the dominatrix is twofold. One, getting them connected to the energy of surrender as best I can so that they can experience that dropping into presence. Because we all need to be really present to what we're doing and how we're doing it, because that's, of course, where our moments of inspiration comes in. That's where we have that creativity of like, oh, if I just do this, and you follow it, and then your business takes off. So that's one slice of it. The other slice is looking at it from the dominatrix side and who she is and using that as an archetype. So the archetype is this woman who is able to stand and hold a space. And it's, in business, it would be holding a space for your clients, holding a space of expertise so that your clients can rely on what you're doing and lean on you and know that they can trust you. There's also the piece of being confident and, really speaking authentically, even if you don't know 100% what you're doing, because none of us are 100% sure, but our clients want to know that you are willing to stand in that. You're willing to hold that space. They are looking for us to be that expert. And then the other big piece I would say is this space of no judgment. So as a dominatrix, it wasn't my place to ever judge anybody else's kink. There was just the choice of whether that worked for me or didn't work for me, in the fact of like whether I was willing to engage in that type of play or not. So in the negotiation, it was just a yes or no. But it's not my place to judge them. And it's not my place to judge my clients. And for business people, we can't be judging our clients. We have to have that space of no judgment for them and allowing ourselves to be able to utilize other people's judgments of us. So everything that we do, we stand on stage, we get judged. We put stuff out in social media, we get judged. We show up, we get judged for what we're wearing, how we look, how we don't look. It meets your expectation, it doesn't meet your expectation. But a lot of people talk about how to be okay with being judged. Mm-hmm. But what if we took it a step further and we said, what if that judgment could now be fuel for where you're going? Excellent. And that's the really high level piece. So.
Good one.
Yeah.
So how do you how do you arrive at that place of not judging your clients? And I mean, you've had probably more practice than most of our listeners, but it's still a very important piece. And you had to, at one point, have come to interactions with some judgment, and at some point you managed to shed that.
Absolutely. And where I am today is very different from where I used to be. Like, I used to be the most judgmental person ever. And so, yeah, it's a process. And that is definitely some tools that I teach. So if you want, I'm happy to share some tools with the listeners.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. So there's some really cool pieces. So the idea here is that what we want to do is we want to get to the space where things are neither good nor bad. They're not right and they're not wrong. That's high level consciousness. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to remove the energetic charge that we have about specific things. Mm-hmm. And then it's a matter of just being able to be with it without needing to, put it in a box of right or wrong. And that is what makes things a lot easier. We can just be with it. It just is. So one of the simple tools that I have several ways to clear things, but the simplest way is to use kind of a modification of the EFT, which is the meridian clearing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do is we use your index finger and your thumb of one hand, and you just kind of make a C with your hand. And then where you're going to place it is just up on the hairline, or where your hairline would be in Josh's case.
If he had hair, yeah.
If he had hair, right, it would be where the hairline would be. Okay, so that's the placement marker. So what we do with this tool is we say a statement, and then you place your fingers up on the hairline. You take a deep breath with the intention of clearing the energy systems. Okay, and that helps to clear the charge out of your system. Now, you may need to do a couple of rounds where you say the statement, put your fingers up on there, take a nice deep breath. You could even do a big sigh, just right, get it out of the system. And you want to get it to the place where you can say the statement and there's a neutrality to the statement. So if you say something like, I'm okay with having money, and you just notice that if there's like a little bit of a disruption in the system, most people, it's surprising, it sounds like, oh, I should be okay with having money. But not everybody actually is okay with having money, and that's what creates a disruption. So if you say the statement, I'm okay with having money, put your fingers up on your forehead, take a deep breath, a little sigh, and then you say the statement again, I'm okay with having money. And then notice if there's still a little bit more, put your fingers back up on your head, take another deep breath and clear it. Now, the other part of this secret is that you want to clear the opposite as well. So we want to say, I'm okay with not having money. And this is where most people resist me. And I'm like, just do it.
Go dominatrix, yeah.
That's right. So I get my whip out. Just do it. Okay. Because if we don't clear both sides of our polarity on something, if we don't clear both sides, then you're left with part of it in there, and it creates the disruption again. So if we, and we're not trying to put something in, we're not trying to make it so that we're okay with not having money. We're trying to clear any disruption, any emotional piece on either the positive or the negative, if you want to call it those. And in doing that, what you find is that you will come to a place of neutrality about having money, and then it's just a choice. And that's ultimately about the whole thing about getting out of judgment, is we want to get to a space where it's just a choice whether you do it or don't do it. It's a choice whether you go out and jaywalk or don't go out and jaywalk. Like, yes, it's illegal, but it can be just a choice. It doesn't have to just, it doesn't have to create a disruption in your system. Go ahead.
So here, I spend a lot of time trying to be neutral, which I have found in cases is very close to not caring, which is there's no energy with it one way or the other. So, for instance, oh crap, what was I going to say? Anyway, oh man, I lost it.
Yeah,
anyway,
I think a lot of people.
I lack of motivation, basically, right?
Yeah.
So I used to, I'd always want to do something, and I used to be humble. I want to be humble. I didn't want to be an egotistical person because there were some issues in my, past life. Oh goodness, that might be something I need coaching around. Where egos get us in trouble. I needing to be the best, needing to be better than everybody else, needing to be so. I have a lot in my life that's whatever it is, and I take that as okay. Don't add a value to it. It's just a situation and you can deal with it. But what I found is sometimes that neutrality in that way ends up being a power limiting thing. One doesn't put the actual energy into doing something. It's just kind of like, it's all right. How do you combat that?
So there's two things going on with this. Mm-hmm. One, we often mistaken neutrality, having neutral for lack of motivation. Mm-hmm. And when we're inspired to take action, it often feels very different from the frantic pace that most people put themselves in order to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing, is being able to differentiate the feel difference. So when you're inspired to do something, it's not necessarily this, whoa, let me go do it, charge out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of just a quiet little, yes, I really want to do that. The other thing is that when you're trying to go to neutral, when you're forcing neutral, you often end up suppressing emotions. So you're shoving down the supposed, negative emotions because I don't need this. So you shove it down, and in order to shove something down, you end up in a flat line. So that's what creates that lack of desire to move forward, is you're putting all this energy into suppressing what's going on. So if we do this work where, whatever tool you get there to clear the system as opposed to trying to force something, there's a difference. The neutrality comes automatically when you clear both sides of the polarity. You don't have to force it. It's very easy.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would be something you'd need to actually try it, because most people don't believe me at the beginning. I think that's probably my biggest resistance I have from people, is the tools are so simple that I work with that it's almost too easy. It's no, life's supposed to be harder than that, right?
Yeah, EFT always weirded me out. It was it's really? You can tap here and do that.
Well,
okay.
What if it's that easy?
But yeah. And that's the other thing. That's the question I've learned to ask recently. What if it really is that easy?
Right. What if? What if we've been making it hard all this time? And it's really that simple. It's a matter of letting go of the resistance. And then we naturally step forward, follow the flow, instead of forcing ourselves. So many people are forcing themselves to do this. I've got to get in the game. I got to get up my hustle. They're ugh, trying to push themselves to do everything. But when you start releasing your polarity and resistance to either side, then it becomes a choice to do it or not do it, and it becomes a place of inspired action, which feels so juicy to come from that place. It's easy. It's effortless. But we've been effortless. We've been taught to be skeptical of easy, right?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna let you have that one too. Yeah. Gosh.
Right? You might want to clear that.
All right. Josh, I'm gonna shut up. Your turn.
Yeah, I was gonna say there seems to be a difference then between no judgment, between clearing the polarities, and neutrality, right? Yeah. Neutral is I actively am aiming at neither of these things. When you're clearing your polarity, what you're doing is you're feeling equally okay with both these things. And now I'm going to actively pick the one that I want to go toward, understanding that there's nothing negative over here. The other one, I don't have any feeling either way about that other thing, but I prefer the thing that I'm going toward, and now I can just go toward it.
Right.
Without worrying about the other thing because it's gone. Yeah,
it's not even gone, because a lot of people talk about that with energy tools that were, can I even say it? I say clearing, and that's kind of inaccurate. I think a more accurate statement is more like we are allowing ourselves to have the full spectrum, the full bandwidth, because we always have this whole spectrum of the extreme good, the extreme bad, and if we try to resist or ignore any part of it, then we're out of balance. But when we take off our resistance to either side and we say, okay, well, where would I like to play? What's fun? And if, maybe tomorrow playing in the totally negative side would be fun. I don't know. But if we have choice to be anywhere in that spectrum, the whole spectrum is all there. All we're clearing is the resistance to being anywhere in that spectrum.
People aren't accustomed to number one, we know they're not accustomed to feeling that, but they're not accustomed to being around that. One of my favorite books is Illusions. And one of the quotes in Illusions is, let's see how close I can get to it, is that unconditional love looks very much like not caring.
It does.
Because you're going to love them either way, so you don't care which way they go, which doesn't mean you don't care. It just means it doesn't matter. It's just there. That's a very difficult state. Okay, here's my coaching. That's a belief to get to. All right, that is most of us need to work on that either way. And I occasionally think I'm there, and then something will happen, and I find out I'm close, but I'm not quite. I'm not quite there. And people are also accustomed to if somebody doesn't care, like there's a lot of things in life I have no choice about one way or the other, then it's like, oh, you don't know how to make a decision. You don't want really, no, it's just, it doesn't matter. If you want to do it, that's really fine. I'll go along with that, but I have no preference either way. Mm-hmm. So, fine. And people don't understand that. Women especially, I have found, were like, and you are so weird. I had a woman tell me one time, no wonder you've been married 3 times. You don't know how to make a decision. I love her a lot. I know how to make a decision.
Yeah.
But when I make a decision about stuff that I need to make a decision about, that's my decision. The other stuff don't matter.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Some people need to be ruled. Oh, see, that's back to your bailiwick.
Back to my
So talk about that piece of it. The people who don't actually understand that.
It's challenging. I think a lot of people think
it's kind of like floating on the water, right? It's kind of like
it is kind of like floating on the water, and I think it comes down to that people are afraid to lose, and that was that's the third piece I forgot to mention, was that like the dominatrix archetype is that this willingness to lose everything, so that nothing controls you. If you're willing to lose everyone and everything around you, nothing gets to control you. It's just like, somebody comes up and says, give me your wallet or I'm going to shoot you. You're like, oh, here on my wallet. Like, I don't care, right? Like, I'll just get another wallet. And in that willingness to just let it go, then the person trying to control you with the loss of your wallet no longer has something to control you over. And what I think is that for most people, they're very attached to everything in this reality being real and thinking that they could possibly lose anything. Mm-hmm. They've forgotten who they are, and the fact that even if you die, you don't, like, your body dies, but you don't die. So there's nothing anybody can take away from you. And when you get to that, when you really, get that, if you're willing to get that, mm-hmm. there's freedom. There's absolute freedom. It's Maya Angelou saying that you belong nowhere and everywhere. Mm-hmm. When you're willing to lose everything, you belong nowhere and everywhere. It's so incredible. But it is challenging for people because I'm asking them to give up everything that they've already known and everything that they've decided that they got right. That's a really big piece.
Yeah, and I spend a lot of time trying to be right, about not being right. So that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, cool. Love that. Love that. All right, so Josh, did you have a question?
I did.
Okay.
A few minutes ago, you said the phrase energy clearing, mm-hmm. and this is something you have videos on. You have energy clearing videos on your website.
I do.
Can you just for the I don't know anything about energy clearing. Can you explain?
So, okay. So let's go to a computer.
Okay.
And have you ever had somebody dial in remotely and remove the viruses in your computer? And then your computer runs better?
Sure.
Okay. It's kind of like that. So when we have a disruption in our system, that's energy, our energetic body. So we feel, our energy of how up we are, how low we are, that's all energy. And when we have thoughts that are, we'll use the word negative. I hate the word negative, but negative thoughts like, oh, I'm useless, I can't do this, then our energy drops and we start to feel crappy. In doing the energy clearing, what the idea is to remove that belief that I'm useless, or at least loosen it off, and then your energy level can come back up again. You start to feel better, lighter, and it's easier to take action. So as long as you're feeling like a worthless piece of crap, you're really not going to go anywhere in your business, because you'd be like, oh, I don't think I should put that proposal out because nobody will like it and they won't, so you're not likely to actually go anywhere. So in clearing it, then you can start taking action again. Does that?
Yeah.
Is there more?
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Cool.
I know energy can, we don't have a lot of great words for it, and yet it's so integral with who we are and how we live. But
yeah. So now that I have taken you off of any possible path you had planned to go on in this conversation,
I had no plans. I came here completely open.
That's a good way to come to our podcast. You just never know what's going to come out of my face.
Josh warned me.
See, he is so good about that. He is so good about that. All right. So now, all that having been said, tell us what you do. Because I read your site and you talked about the modalities that you use, and everything, and I watched a couple other videos you do. So we know you kind of clear, we know you do all this and you transform energy, but tell us about your process.
Okay. So basically there's 3 parts when I'm working with people. So the first part is to get them out of judgment. So I teach people about different ways of clearing the energy. I'll give them several different tools, find a way that really resonates with them. And so we work through getting rid of the stubborn beliefs, or things that just kind of have gotten locked in that they're buying into that aren't true. So we clear those off. As you clear that off, it makes a lot more space for people to be able to tap into who they are. This is what I say about who you are as an infinite being. And the more you tap into that, the easier it is to start to get to know your intuition, your inner knowing. And your gut sense has always been right. It's never lied to you. Like if you can find a time in which your gut was wrong, let me know, because I haven't found anybody yet. So your gut sense is 100% right all of the time. Mm-hmm. So the thing is to start to train that muscle, to train yourself to listen to that gut feel ahead of time. So now when you're looking at making business decisions, you're looking at life partner decisions, you're looking at even just simple things of like what to wear, what to eat, you can start to tune into that gut sense and follow it and have your results exponentialize, right? So if you're avoiding pitfalls because your intuition is saying don't go there, and you're starting to follow the niggles of where should I be going, in the fact of what expands my business, you can see that your business is going to start to rocket forward a lot faster. So that's the training there. And then the third component of it, or third layer, is that high level consciousness, where you get to the space of having no judgment for you or anyone else, and you're willing to lose everyone and everything. And like I said, that doesn't come until we've done these other layers, and you start to develop the muscle of stepping into your power and trusting who you are, really leaning into that. Then you can be willing to lose everything.
I had that once, but it was the wrong energy. That thing, because one of my statements was, and you can speak to this, is I am prepared, is the word I used, probably wasn't the right word, at any time to be able to lose anyone I know, anything I know, so that the thought of someone dying, for instance, doesn't necessarily affect me, because my consciousness is, well, when you die, I mean, you're not really dead. You're in a rise above, and now you're a spirit being. You're a non-physical entity, and if we have the connection, we'll be able to communicate there. So I don't like the idea of painful death because that just seems unnecessary, right? Mm-hmm. But as far as losing someone, like I lost my father, I lost my mother. I eventually cried, but my mother is always with me. I got a picture downstairs. She's smiling at me every time I come up and down the stairs. So, we have conversations from time to time. However, what I found for me, I think, was that, and you can speak to this, that position wasn't so much acceptance as it was a tremendous shield to keep me from being hurt. And there's a big difference in those two points where I'm just kind of not letting myself feel because I don't want to feel pain when somebody goes, versus the true in-depth knowledge that when they leave, they really aren't gone, and we'll still have that piece of them. So,
and I would call bullshit on this, because when you describe how you feel that you're willing to lose these people, mm-hmm. the energy of that resonates. It's like there's a congruence there. Mm-hmm. And so when you start talking about that that there's a shield, that to me feels like you're picking up that behavior and belief from somebody else. And it doesn't matter who, but the majority of the world has the belief that it's not okay to lose people. Death is very wrong in this reality. It's like, it's so stupid because you don't get out alive.
Yeah, exactly. It's right. like I've often had the conversation with Christians, right? which is like, oh, but wait a minute, they just died. They're going to heaven, which is where everybody wants to go. But why are you mad at them because they left? Right?
They got a fast track. It's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a little wonky.
Not consistent to me. So
no.
I've had some.
So that's where I would see in reading your energy. That's what I feel. And this is something that trips up a lot of people, is that we pick up thoughts and feelings from other people. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we mistaken that it's ours because we're feeling it in our body. But just because you feel it in your body doesn't mean it's yours. Yeah. Energy's everywhere. And then, we can also go to the whole spiritual side of that. We're all one, so it is all yours. But,
how does one, and you can continue what you're saying, but follow up with the question. So how does one learn to know the difference?
Yeah. And that's so this is that journey that I say, we take you on. So that second part about getting you connected with your intuition allows you to be able to differentiate, because when you are tuned to your intuition, you get that feel. So first thing I do with people is I tune them into their compass, and I can do this with you guys. So what you want to do is you want to get a feel for when something is true for you versus something that's false for you. Okay. So it's not right or wrong. It's just true for you. And Josh's truth might be different from my truth. Doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong. It's just what my compass tells me. Okay. So that I'm always tuning in for what works for me.
All right.
So what I want you to do is I want you to just kind of drop into your body. Let yourself, because I know you guys got lots of things going on in your head. You're running this podcast.
I was trying to say you have no idea, but I forgot who you are.
I know. I can feel it. I can hear it. So if you want to just place your hand on your heart, just to help yourself connect to your body, right? And you take a deep breath and you just let yourself drop into your body. And I'm going to just put out 2 statements that are kind of like questions. And all I want you to do is I want you to just notice the reaction that your body has. Okay, so it's not about answering it in your head. It's just noticing your body so that we get that compass. All right, so the first statement is, are you an infinite being? And you just notice how that feels, how that lands. And then we compare that to, are you a finite pile of crap? Okay, and other than it making you laugh, you just notice the feeling in your body. Now, there should be 2 distinct sensations in the body. And that gives you your compass. And it's different for everybody, right? So some people, they feel like a tingling in the head. Some people it's a, an opening in through the chest. I had one person who it was a tingling in the shoulder for true, a tingling in the elbow for false. Like it doesn't matter what it is, just that you have the two sensations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so did you both get two sensations? Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the infinite being question, I feel, just a slight flicker, kind of in my heart center. For the finite pile of crap statement, my neck tensed up.
Cool. There's your positive and negative. Okay, true and false. Kelvin?
Well,
not so much.
My head's buzzing at the moment, but I can't quite figure out when it actually started. I believe I don't know. I didn't notice the actual. I'm gonna have to try. I'm gonna have to do that again and ask myself and try to go through that and see.
Yeah. So you might have too much going on in your head right now.
Got a lot
to notice. So you can play with it. And you can also play with any statements that you know to be true and false. So you can say, my name is, and use your real name, and then use, and then my name is, and use the name that's, opposite sex and completely different, so that you can compare the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once you've got,
where are we feeling this? Where are we?
Anywhere in your body. Right. It's different for everybody. That's why I want you to tune in and just notice. Could be anything. Okay?
Okay.
I know. We're leaving it wide open. There's no way to get it right.
But you got to be able to drop out of your head to get
you got to
that state to feel it first.
And I know that. I spend a lot of time in my head. You
I can tell.
Probably never knew that, did you?
No, I can't feel that. So,
wow.
So here's the thing. It's like once you have that compass, and we know it's like just like a physical compass. Once you know which direction points north, now you can gauge other questions. So we can start asking questions in order to get an awareness, and you're looking for that sensation. Does this work for me? Does this not work for me? Right? Is this true for me? You can start to play around with it. And just to tell the listeners that if you want to start this muscle development, what I suggest you do is ask really non-critical questions to begin with. So, should I take this route to work, or should I take this route to work? And you look for which one has more of that true sensation for you and follow it. And it doesn't matter. You may take the route that feels light and you end up in construction. You don't know what was on the other route. So assume that there was a massive accident that you would have been in. Okay? So you're just developing that muscle. Should I wear this shirt or this shirt? You just ask questions that do not matter, but follow it, whatever that niggle is, and you'll start to develop that connection with your intuition a little stronger.
Well, and this is Robert Frost's poem, right? It doesn't matter that he took the path less traveled by. It's just the choice he made.
Yeah.
He could have taken the other one and gotten somewhere, and he didn't. He'll never know.
Right. You don't know. And that's part of stepping out of judgment of it. It's just a choice.
That's work,
It's work?
That's work, yeah.
Well, it's work if you're attached to your brain. So if you're attached to your mind running things, then yeah, it's work. Because your brain, but the thing is that your brain is unfortunately limited, right? Your brain is very finite, very controlled, and your brain's very attached to only giving you answers of what you already know. Yes. So when you want to go beyond that, you might need to want to tap into the cosmos, some more infinite wisdom, instead of this lovely, tiny little computer in your head.
You know what really sucks is I know that.
We teach what we most need to know.
See. You're in my goodie box now. You're in my Richard Bach and Illusions. That's my book. And oh my gosh, yes, okay, yeah, that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna shut up. Josh, it's got to be your turn.
Well, I was just gonna say you got Kelvin thinking. We just got to get him feeling.
Yes. We'll drop the sensation down a few feet.
We've had we've had that conversation before. Wow. Okay. I feel like I diverted you again from where you were headed before I started asking questions.
It's all good.
But it's what we do, So
it's going to pull out exactly what the listeners are needing. I trust that.
So when you're, see, you did it to me again. When you're, you were talking about, we're back in the business, and you talked about your video, you talked about all the modalities that you use to work with people. When you said, you don't just use one channel, you don't just use coaching, you don't just use Reiki, you don't just use. So give us a clue of a high level view of the modalities that you are capable of bringing into play when you're working with someone.
Thank you. So I've done quite a bit of study in and around the body. I started out as a massage therapist and have studied, the body and physiology, nutrition, all of those topics for quite a bit. And so if I'm working with somebody, sometimes I get a sense that what's going on, the spin that they might be in, like I had one client in particular, she called me, she was all in a panic. She's like, I just can't seem to get out of this spin. And I'm talking with her and I'm like, this doesn't feel like something we need to clear. I said, so we did some muscle testing with her and it turns out she was low on B vitamins. I got her to go to her cupboard, take some B vitamins from her stash. And immediately, like within 10 minutes, her stress level started going down. So it's not all energy. It's never all one tool. That can be one other thing. So it could be something physical that's causing a disruption in the system. And I, have extensive training there. The psychological, emotional side, I've done quite a bit of psychotherapy training. And so sometimes I'll pull that in. So maybe we need to, do some hypnosis to change the underlying programming, the belief systems, or just, to hold this space and let the person cry. Maybe that's what they need. Maybe they just need to release and just emote for a little bit to have that safe space. So I have that skill to be able to do that if that's what's required. The energy work, obviously, that's what I've been talking about primarily because I find that that's fast. It's very fast and effective. And then the business skills, I have been self-employed for 26 years. I've run a $1 million business. I've had staff. I have a fair bit of business background. So when it comes to straight up business strategy, then I will pull that in as well. If that's what's going on and you just need a little tweak in the system, then I'll pull that in. So for me, it's those 4 layers. And I look at it like a car. And, the car has 4 wheels. If you're only turning one wheel, you go round in circles. And that's what I find most people do. They work with one coach that does one slice. And so we get the emotions like, oh, I'm really good emotionally, right? But then you're spinning because you're not actually taking strategic action in your business. And, maybe the energy system is a little bit wonky, or the physical. Maybe you need to get your physical stuff strengthened up. But when you have all 4 wheels going in the same direction at the same speed, the car flies.
Yep.
You said the energy work is the fastest in your experience. What's fast?
What's fast? So when people are ready, I've had people, so let's take sexual trauma. So somebody who's been raped. I have had people who've come in and within 2 hours got into a space where they are grateful for what happened. They can see the gifts and they're willing to move forward in their life free of that baggage in a 2-hour period.
That's some pretty heavy baggage
It is.
To drop off. I mean,
right.
You're not talking about, watching a cat get run over.
No.
Which could be heavy baggage for somebody. But
we all imprint it differently.
Right? Yeah.
It's not about the incident. It's about how did we imprint it. And, and that's one example. I've had other people who have, hung on to it for years and years and aren't willing to let it go. It doesn't matter.
But you got to be ready to come to it.
If you're ready, we can actually, release that and get you to the space where you're feeling grateful for what happened, which it's mind-blowing to think that you would be grateful for being raped. But it's possible.
I've heard a lot of different scenarios where something traumatic like that actually gave the person the skills, the compassion, the insight to be able to help, hundreds of thousands of other people who have had it. So from maybe they really didn't like the trauma of it, but the gift they ended up with being able to help other people in the world was, I know some people who were severely handicapped. I met a young lady once who, I met her several times, but anyway, she had cerebral palsy. And at the time I didn't really know what that consisted of because we had been corresponding by email. And she was a master's prepared individual research assistant, and she was writing me images. And I invited her to breakfast one time, and she said, "Well, I need somebody to feed me who could come with me." And that didn't even click. So she wrote me back a couple of days later and said, "Okay, well, my sister's going to come with me, so we can have breakfast and have a conversation." And until I saw her being wheeled in the door, it hadn't occurred to me what I was dealing with, because I was communicating with the person inside that shell who has had full awareness and stuff, and the realization that she just didn't have the ability to get that message, that communication out the way we're used to it. It was like mind-boggling, and I had to wrestle with that for a long time, because it was like, wow, that was so impacting on me. And as it turns out, she had a tremendous sense of humor, and she would spend a lot of time laughing at people who didn't think she could understand what they were saying. So, and cool like that. But that kind of thing. So, I'm sure she's not really crazy about having that condition. But what I found for me in that was, when you have somebody like that, there are some tremendous minds inside the body that's just not functioning right. I met another guy who was an engineer for one of the aircraft companies, and brilliant mind, didn't have the ability, because of some imbalance in vitamins or amino acids or something, couldn't get the message out. But when you had the time to sit and just relax and listen into who they were, tremendous individual, brilliant individual, with a lot to say. And it was a humbling moment. I need to revisit that from time to time for some other humbling moments, because we forget sometimes.
Yeah. And what a gift that you were able to see her before you physically saw her. And so you got to see who she really is.
It was really awesome. So
that's amazing.
That's excellent. So
yeah.
So there you go. So back to you. So what do we do from there? You've read them, you've touched them, you've muscle tested them, you've read their energy, you've neutralized them. What's next?
So yeah,
that
so then
sound right. You neutralize them.
Neutralize them.
You know what I mean.
So it's like I said, it's that process of getting them out of the judgment, getting them really connected to their intuition, and those two pieces have them stepping back into their power, and from there it is the inner dominatrix energy, that piece of knowing who you are, being willing to show up fully, and being willing to have everyone judge you, not have an issue with it, to be using it. So
that's awesome. And you teach that.
I do.
You help people find that in themselves.
Yes. It's an absolute joy. I actually, even this morning, I had a new client that I started working with. And she's been through all kinds of different modalities, worked with all kinds of different gurus. And, she's been on this little cycle of giving her power away, in that, this person knows more than me, just on that dance. And so to be able to pull her in really quickly into who she is and get her standing in her knowing, was so, it's like I'm like just jumping up and down in the call. On the inside, I'm like, whoa, because that's it. It's like I get supercharged when I see somebody like have it land and be able to like pull that in and feel their power again and feel that knowing of like, you know what? Yeah, it's me. It's me that does this, not anybody else outside of me. It's me. That is such
do you work more with men or women?
Women primarily. It's just who I've been targeting. At first, I did not target men because, well, when I say the word dominatrix, men, their brains just, leave. And
well,
that's
I have learned to reel mine back in from time to time.
Yeah, and I get all kinds of comments, and it always goes into the sex realm, and so I got tired of trying to explain it, and women could get the concept of where I was using that archetype.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's good stuff.
Yeah, but it's not to say that I'm adverse to working with men. They just have to understand where I'm coming from.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No. Understand that.
No.
I've been told I have a very strong sense of the divine. I mean, that my divine feminine is very strong. So, after being told that 3 times from 3 different people, practitioners, I understood that. And I work more with women than men most usually. So.
Yeah, we just got to get you in your body.
There is, yeah. I'm gonna work with that.
we're all a work in progress.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Cool.
What's the toughest thing you've ever had to do in this work? Your biggest challenge outside of stupid men.
I would say
men. Uninformed men.
My own ego.
Your own ego. Explain.
My own ego. I'm aware of where my talents are. I'm aware of the skill level that I bring. And I can also move a little too much into I'm better than everyone else. So that's my ugly side. I'm pretty smart.
I know a good coach might be able to help you with that. I'll send you my card later. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, that was a very honest answer. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
I'm going to shut up again, Josh. Go ahead.
Okay, well, this is usually the part of the conversation where I ask, what do you wish people would ask you more? And it seems that, about half our recent guests have said, I hate that question. So they said, well, I ask people that too, and I hate getting it, so I want to stop asking it. So I think I might stop asking it.
I wish they would ask me to, coach them.
So what I'm going to ask you instead is, what do you wish people knew more about?
I mean, we've covered so much in this podcast. It's been good. I think you've given me an ability to be able to explain what I do and why it's important to me. So I can't think of anything that we've really missed in here. So good job on the interviewing.
Thank you. Tell all your friends.
Thanks.
I will.
The podcast to be on is Jason's podcast.
There we go.
Just don't even waste your time with those other guys.
Yeah. Cool.
Excellent.
Great. So where can people find you online? Where do you like to hang out the most?
So social media-wise, I'm primarily Facebook. And then website is danapharant.com, or you can put in innerdominatrix.com. And then funny little thing, my name is, I'm the only Dana Pharant in the world.
Wow.
And I haven't seen anything yet where you're like wearing a Wonder Woman costume. So I guess you're trying to.
Is that a request?
That whole image, right? You wear that inside. You just don't bring that out to you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's invisible.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Indulging all my weird questions, but
my pleasure.
all right.
All right. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Show notes and more at jkw.org.